As we go through these guys, we thought long and hard about what we wanted to present to you guys, what things we want to work on. And the overarching goal of the whole retreat is to improve our ability to move more quickly as a company. And some of that will be in the form of how we train you guys. Others will be how we pass information to one another and to our customers. The goal at the end of all of this is to have a better understanding of how you can move forward in the company, you can make a bigger impact with your students, and just overall have an easier time of having a clear understanding of what your expectations are and how you can get to where you want to go, if that makes sense. So, one, we wanted to build right off the bottom with effective communication, because everything else we talk about today will hinge on being effective communicators. Okay? So we're going to start with effective communication. We're going to build on that with receiving feedback and so on and so forth. So they should build on one another. The information, please take notes if you feel so inclined so you can review this. This is something we're going to hit in other trainings, and we're going to expect you to live up to as we work together as a team. Okay? Jennifer?
Fantastic. So this presentation is going to be on building strong relationships through effective communication. We're going to do some practice here in a little bit as well and talk about different things. So understanding different communication styles. Everybody communicates just a little bit differently, and you have to understand how they're communicating in order to effectively communicate with them, right? When it comes to speaking with parents and understanding what their needs are and helping them walk through different situations with their kids, talking to different coworkers, understanding any problems that you might be having, any friction, often can boil down to just different communication styles. So in your packet of handouts as well, we went through how to deal with each of these different types of communication styles. We'll start with assertive communicators. These are probably going to be your favorite communicator if they're a true assertive communicator. They express their thoughts, feelings, and needs in a very direct and respectful manner. That's the important part there. They stand up for their rights without infringing on the rights of others. And assertive communication promotes honesty, transparency, and mutual respect in different interactions. So if you are lucky enough to be communicating with an assertive communicator, it's going to be a lot easier to navigate different situations. Your passive communicators, they tend to avoid conflict and they suppress their own needs and desires. They often fail to express themselves clearly, which leads to misunderstandings and frustration. Passive communication results in feelings of resentment and dissatisfaction in relationships. Any of you have experience communicating with passive communicators? Yeah, probably all of us at some point. Have you been a passive communicator?
Mm-hmm. Never once.
Oh, I would believe that one. Aggressive communication.
That's me.
Possibly, yeah, probably. Aggressive communicators are overly forceful or hostile, expressing their opinions and demands. They prioritize their own needs and interests, often at the expense of others. And aggressive communication often leads to conflict, intimidation, and damage of relationships.
I'm working on getting on the other side of it.
You'll see your assertive and your aggressive communicators are actually pretty well paired. If you're an aggressive communicator, you can learn to be an assertive communicator, and it probably won't even be all that difficult for you. Passive-aggressive communication. So passive-aggressive communicators, they indirectly express their anger or resentment through subtle passive means. We've seen that before. Everyone's like, oh, any of you passive-aggressive? You can keep that to yourselves because you're passive-aggressive. They may use sarcasm, backhanded compliments, or nonverbal cues to convey their displeasure. And passive-aggressive communication undermines trust and creates tension in relationships. So in the handouts I gave you, we've got some tips on going through those different communication styles and how to most effectively communicate with them. Sure. We'll save those for people who show up. I know, lots of steps. ChatGPT is fantastic. I mean, what? Came up with it all by myself. Let's start not with your assertive communicators because they're the easy ones to deal with. Okay. Communicating with an aggressive communicator. I'm not going to read these verbatim, but just some tips when you are talking to them. Remain calm. That part is incredibly important because aggressive communicators, again, they're going to be a little bit overly hostile in their communication with you. They are very passionate often about what they are dealing with. And you can have
and
people
sometimes not because they're even mad at you, just because
Right.
that's how
They
they express
just-
themselves. My grandpa was a very aggressive
Mhm.
communicator, but it didn't mean he was mad at you. It just meant that's just how he talked all the time, and you didn't need to get mad. And that took me a long time. You know, my grandpa was actually like trying to have a nice conversation with me, but it just came out as use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. And that was him trying to give me like life advice, not lecturing me for throwing away half a banana. You know?
Fair. So recognizing where they're coming from, and if you can tell their communication style, you can deal with it. Just like he said, you don't have to get upset about it. You remain calm because you know they're not mad at you, most likely. Sometimes they will be, and then, you know, that's a whole different story. And your assertive
They will
communicators can be
absolutely tell you.
mad at you too. So remain calm. Use active listening while you're talking with them. They are going to like to be heard and know that you're paying attention to what they're saying. Make sure you empathize and validate. Set boundaries. It's okay to have boundaries, and that goes like all the time, no matter who you're talking to. You can have your own boundaries, and set boundaries for what is acceptable behavior. Use I statements. This part's important, really, when dealing with about anybody, but especially with aggressive communicators. Say, I feel uncomfortable with this tone of conversation, rather than you're being aggressive. Anytime you can put it back on yourself, it kind of helps diffuse the situation. Stay focused on solutions. Don't let it kind of wander into behaviors. Take breaks if necessary. Seek mediation if necessary, and follow up. Yes, Ash.
So, little kids are often aggressive communicators. And so, like, knowing when to set boundaries and saying, hey, are you ready for a respectful conversation is how you can kind of handle those. Because a lot of little kids don't know how to handle their emotions, and they'll just come out as anger, and they'll be aggressive.
Yeah, so for the recording, little kids often will be quite aggressive in their communication, so knowing how to set those boundaries with them becomes incredibly important. Passive-aggressive communicators, you got to be a little bit different in your dealing with them. You need to address their behavior directly, but calmly. So remain calm, but you've got to actually address the behavior. Avoid escalating the situation by maintaining a neutral tone. I'm very much I'm getting better, but will mirror conversations and mirror emotions when I'm having conversations with people. So if you start to escalate the conversation with me, I will probably escalate right along with you, which doesn't help situations at all. And so if you find yourself doing that, you've got someone who is either being aggressive or even passive aggressive in what they're doing. Avoid stepping into the trap of matching what they're doing, and remain calm. You're in control of you. Stay in control of you and help keep the situation a little bit more stable. Encourage open dialogue. So make sure you create a safe and supportive environment where they feel comfortable expressing their thoughts and concerns openly with you. Seek clarification. If you don't know what they're saying, and we're going to talk a lot about that as we continue on, ask. Because passive-aggressive communicators, again, they subtle. And
Expect
passive
you to
means
absorb the hints and
you
put
should
the
just
puzzle
see
together.
it.
And you don't have to do that.
No.
But you do need to ask them enough questions to force them to explain themselves.
Yeah. If you don't know what they are telling you, please ask those clarifying questions through active and reflective listening. Again, set boundaries. Boundaries is huge in communication with anybody, whether it's parents or coworkers. You know, make sure that you have standards for what is acceptable for you behavior-wise and communication-wise, and let them know that passive-aggressive behavior is not going to be okay, in an assertive manner, not an aggressive manner. Focus on solutions. That's important for them to, get to those constructive solutions. Provide feedback. Lead by example. Make sure you're offering support for them, because often passive-aggressive behavior is rooted in insecurities or other underlying issues. So they're going to want that support and that reassurance that everything's okay. And then know when to disengage, know when it's time to just stop that conversation because it's not going anywhere, and revisit it later rather than let it continue to escalate. Take a quick look at your passive communicator. For passive communicators, these are ones who really don't say what they need. They kind of just sit there and listen. They'll absorb. They have a difficult time expressing their own feelings because they don't like to be very assertive. They don't like to put themselves out there. but it can often lead to misunderstandings and frustrations for them. So encourage their participation, actively encourage them to express their thoughts. If you see them sitting in a meeting, ask those questions that'll prompt them to open up. If you're having a meeting with a parent and the mom's just in there, I've had plenty of those where the mom is just super quiet, was kind of nod her head, maybe answer a question or two here and there. You've got to kind of pull stuff out of them. And so open that with some confident dialogue with them, some questions, and see if you can't get them talking about something they're passionate about, helping them get out of the passive side. Use open-ended questions. Don't ask them yes or no. Have you talked to kids and you'll give them yes or no's and all you get, how was your day at school today? Fine. That one's kind of open-ended, but they are not thinking open-ended. Did you have fun at school today? Yes or no. They're not going to open up and continue to talk to you. But what was your favorite part of school today? You might get a little bit more conversation from them, unless they're teenagers. Practice active listening. You'll see this appears on all of them. Provide validation. Make sure that you help boost their confidence when they do have an idea and they're communicating in a meeting or they are talking with you about their kid. Agree with them on occasion as long as it's not crazy. Seek feedback from a passive communicator. You might think someone who's sitting there super quiet and is not contributing very much to the meeting might not have a lot of feedback for you, but probably they've been observing a lot and they can provide you quite a bit of feedback if you just will ask them. And that in turn helps validate them that their thoughts and word has escaped me for a minute, but their feedback is valid, that they did see. Never mind, we're going to move on. Offer support. Make sure that you are approachable and supportive for them, especially if the passive communicator is hesitant to speak up due to insecurity or fear of criticism. Set clear expectations and provide opportunities for input. Give them chances to provide their feedback and their insight. Be patient and respectful with them, and then make sure you follow up and check in with them after meetings and discussions to make sure that they did feel heard and understood. And if they didn't, that you're able to have that moment to see what more they might have been willing to share. We'll end with your assertive communicator. And I would guess that most of us, even if we think we're assertive communicators, are probably not quite all the way there and lie somewhere in the realm of aggressive or passive aggressive most of the time. Be direct and clear with assertive communicators. They appreciate it. They want you to just tell them what it is. They don't want you to be passive aggressive when you're talking to them. Listen actively, so make sure you're paying attention to what they have to say and show that you're engaged by nodding and providing other verbal cues. Respect their boundaries, because assertive individuals are really good at setting boundaries. So make sure that you are allowing them that space. Be honest and transparent when you're talking with them, because they'll see through it. Express your needs. Stay calm and confident with them and address issues directly. Don't beat around the bush. Be open to feedback with them, because they're going to give it to you. And then focus on solutions and make sure you're showing appreciation for them. Acknowledge their contributions and ideas, and then express appreciation for their assertiveness and their willingness to communicate with you. I'm going to hand you back those papers. My hand's going to die. So does that kind of make sense with the different communication styles?
Yeah. Those.
Okay, so how can we recognize and adapt to these different communication styles? Beautiful AI art. Yeah, it is. Half eyes and weird noses. It's great.
AI is a great thing. Everybody
It is. So glasses don't matter.
You have to have glasses. They make you look smarter.
Okay, fair. Can you think of some situations when you've maybe been talking to an aggressive parent or a passive aggressive parent or student for that matter, and how you had to adapt your communication to them in order to get things to go well?
Okay, so I think about this one. It was like a holiday sale appointment that I had like 2 years ago. And the parents were brand new. They'd done a trial and they came in to see the holiday sale like pricing. And when I showed them pricing, the dad goes, "I can't believe that you're making me pay this." And I just was like, okay, so I tried to like adapt how I was going to say it almost to a passive aggressive with like an assertive tone. And I was like, well, you just told me that you saw a benefit in your child from this. I'm not making you pay this, but if it's something that you feel like will benefit them, that's the price I got. And he goes, okay. And then he just like handed me his card and he was like, we'll do option A. And I was like, cool. But I think that took like I was ready to kind of fight back with him and be like, I'm not making you do this. But instead of like saying it like that, it was bringing it up in like an assertive, okay, this is what you've told me. This is how you can receive those benefits that you were looking for in the first place.
Excellent. That's nice to get.
My go-to on anyone that is like a passive communicator is kind of a self-deprecating joke of, I'm as dense as a brick and I need you to be really, really clear with me or I'm not going to understand what you're talking about. Help me out here. And then kind of leading from that end of the conversation and being like, look, I'm not going to know how to help you if we can't figure out what's actually going on. And then leading in with questions in the I'm trying to help you. Because if you jump straight into asking questions, sometimes they can feel like you're almost interrogating them instead of trying to figure out how to help them. So if you frame it in the right light, it gets a little bit easier.
All right, we'll move on from this. We're going to now get into active listening and what it means to be an active listener. Many of you in trainings with me have heard the talk less, smile more. We say that all the time. Talk less, smile more. You really need to let whoever you're communicating with be able to communicate. So active listening means paying close attention to what someone is saying, really understand their message, and responding in a caring way. It's not just about hearing the words, right? You can have a conversation with someone. Have you ever had a conversation where you've kind of tuned out partway through? You've been hearing what they're saying, but you're ready to jump to the next section already, and you miss a whole chunk of that might have been vitally important to that conversation. So you show you tuned in by nodding or making eye contact. That part's important. Don't avoid their eyes, but at the same time, don't stare at them the entire time because it gets super uncomfortable and they really don't like it when you talk only to them the whole time. Making Cassie very uncomfortable right now.
I like it when you talk straight to me.
Oh, perfect. So to do it well, you've got to be fully focused on the speaker, be open to their ideas, and truly care about what they're saying. So examples of active listening. Paraphrasing is one thing that you can do. If you're having that conversation with them, you can restate what the speaker said in your own words to make sure that you've understood and to demonstrate that understanding. So one example is that. So what you're saying is, your kid had a lot of fun at karate and you would really like to go ahead and get them started. That's being pretty, assuming the sale as well, but summarize, recap the main points of the speaker's message to ensure clarity and reinforce their understanding. For instance, if I understand you correctly, you're saying that it's really frustrating when the kids on the mat are kind of running around in circles and you can't keep them corralled. Reflect their feelings, acknowledge the speaker's emotions. We kind of actually added those together. For instance, it sounds like you're feeling frustrated because your sister was hitting you all the time, over and over in the backseat of the car. I can see how that was frustrating. Ask clarifying questions, seeking clarification or elaboration on specific points to gain a deeper understanding. So, for example, could you tell me more about what it is you're looking for in that focus for your child? Use nonverbal cues such as nodding and maintaining eye contact and mere body language to show attention and engagement. If someone is this works a lot with the kids when they're on the mat. If you've got a kid who's kind of quiet, reserved, they're coming for an intro, they won't really meet your gaze, they're pretty shy. The last thing you want to do is get up in their face and be super energetic. No, my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. High five. I can't wait to see you. Let's hurry on over here. You're going to shut them down super, super fast. So you kind of have to mirror their body language a little bit. On the flip side, if someone's really excited and energetic, you're like, oh, hi, so glad to see you. They'll be like, okay, bye. Yeah, they will not have any fun. With that active listening is the importance of listening to understand, not just to respond. Oftentimes, especially if we are really passionate about something and we're in an argument or borderline argument with someone, it's really easy to tune out most of what they're saying because you think they're wrong anyway, and be ready to defend yourself or your position. And you're thinking about that instead of actually listening to what's being said by them. And does that ever work?
No.
Not well at all. Usually you just keep getting madder and madder at each other. No one's hearing anything and you leave very frustrated. So if you take the time to just listen to what they're saying and then formulate a response, It'll be much more successful. It'll promote mutual understanding, minimizes the misinterpretations because you get that chance to then ask those clarifying questions, to restate what they said, to clarify that understanding. It'll strengthen your relationships, facilitate problem solving, and enhance communication skills. As many of you teens are becoming adults and everything, you're going to have even more opportunities to build relationships with people and have to communicate with them. And if you can master this, you'll be set. Okay, so actually before we get to that reflective listening, I'm going to give you guys a chance to do some talking amongst each other. I want you to just turn to the person next to you. We would move, but there's no way we're moving in here. And I just want you to have a short conversation, ask some open-ended questions, and get to know each other a little bit more. Some of you might be sitting by people you work with all the time. Some of you are probably sitting by people you've hardly ever even seen. And give you that chance to just kind of ask those open-ended questions, find out a couple of things.
Okay. We'll stop. We're going to grab a pen.
So
We're just gonna do
you're good. We're now activitying it. So
Extra pens. I have pens upstairs. I just extra pens, dude.
we have lots of pens. She communicated her need. We were able to respond. It was great. And go. And time. You're going to get the chance to talk more in just a minute. Hello, Clarissa. Come on in. Let me grab you a couple of papers real fast.
No, I just styled it differently. I actually did the pomodoro. It takes a lot
And
of hairspray.
happy birthday.
Whoa.
Late birthday. I know. We discussed that earlier. I was a little behind. We caught up. It's fine. Okay, we're going to go to the next step of active listening that I think this is even more powerful than just actively listening, nodding, making that eye contact, asking those questions. This is called reflective listening. And reflective listening forces yourself to suppress the natural tendency to just repeat back what they're saying or to listen to respond. And it forces you to reflect back on what they meant by what they said, not what they actually said. You hear people say that all the time, do what I mean, not what I say, right? Understand the deeper meaning.
One of my favorite examples of this is when I say I'm fine, and it's a really passive aggressive way.
She is not fine.
I want you to read my mind and fix what's going on without telling you what's going on. You said
it's true. That's true. Feed Ashland salt. Reflective listening. If you're ever talking to a girl who does say I'm fine, she is probably not fine, and you might need to ask some clarifying questions.
I listen to a podcast and it has this magical phrase that I have used all the time with my girlfriend. It's, I can tell there's something wrong. Do you need help with it, or do you just want to talk? It's awesome.
Yes, understanding, are they wanting to just vent or are they looking for solutions? Oh, I should play It's Not About the Nail. That's my favorite thing.
My favorite example of this is when a parent calls to get their student started and they're like, hey, my kid has ADHD. You wouldn't repeat back to the kid, oh, so your kid has ADHD? But you're like, oh, so you're looking to be more focused? Things like
Right, because you are listening to what they mean, not just repeating back what they say.
I haven't had to do it yet, but Jennifer has made it very available to me. Like, if you're ready to vent, just let me know. And it's really nice to just like have somebody there who's like, yeah, I'm willing to listen. If you need me to fix it, make sure you let me know you need me to fix it.
Actually, let me know you need to vent because otherwise I will fix it.
Yeah.
So.
That's what you go to.
Jennifer's a very, very good reflective.
Yes. Oh, thank you. That's the truth. As a communicator, I jump to solution seeking rather than empathizing first. And it's something I'm working on, but that we all have different ways we communicate. That is the way I communicate. So if you do ever call me and you just need to vent, you've got to tell me I'm just venting, or I will jump into fix it mode. So reflective listening, it's not paraphrasing or parodying. Like Brandon said, mom calls and says, my kid has ADHD. I'm looking for this. You go, oh, so what I hear is your kid has ADHD. That gets the conversation nowhere, but you are digging into what they mean by that. So it's about understanding the idea, not just remembering the words. You can actively listen and just repeat back words, but to reflectively listen, you've got to go into those meanings. So quick difference here. You can see the speaker says, I'm having a hard time communicating with Bill and I don't know what's going on. If you are just actively listening, you might say back, okay, what you're saying is that you're having a hard time communicating with Bill and you don't know what's going on.
yes, what I said.
Yeah, right. I mean, that drives the conversation nowhere. So reflection, it sounds like you're frustrated that you and Bill aren't getting along these days. Now we've opened it up to a little bit more dialogue. We didn't end with a question, which we all know is vitally important in conversations, but it kind of opens that up to express that frustration. There's no value in parodying because it doesn't verify that you actually understood what they said. It only says you listened. Another example of reflection, I thought I did a good job on that report. I turned it in, but I got it back from my boss today with corrections all over it. So if I'm hearing you correctly, seeing those corrections was a big surprise. And the person might say back, yes, and I don't know what to do next. And now we can have a competent conversation with them that actually drives things forward. So there are 4 steps for reflective listening. You're going to listen to what the speaker is saying. Then you're going to determine the meaning of the message. And you might be completely wrong. It's possible. You know, the girl might say, I'm fine, and she might actually be fine.
Usually not. Don't resort to that.
Then you're going to reflect the message back in your own words. And then seek confirmation for that. So you've got to say, if I'm understanding you correctly, when you tell me you're fine, something really deeper is going on and you're really actually kind of frustrated. Are you frustrated with me? Did I understand that right?
Wait,
Heidi.
can I get a picture?
Yes.
To have the mic.
Yes.
So my favorite book is How to Teach or How to Listen So Kids Will Talk and How to Talk So Kids Will Listen. And since I'm a mom of 7, I have to really think about that. And so an example, it actually happened on Thursday. We went to Cafe Rio with our little kids and Nathan. And my daughter Lyric, just trust me on this. She got a kids meal with chips and beans, and she got a sweet pork quesadilla. And Caleb's like, you ordered it, you have to eat it or you're not going to get dessert. And and she was really upset. And she's like, but I don't want to eat it. I can't eat it. I'm full. I'm full. And I was like, hold up. And so I asked her, I'm like, okay, so what do you like about it? She's like, well, I like the meat and I like the beans. I'm like, okay, well, eat the beans. Okay, I can do that. And then we got into it and she said, I really don't like cheese and I don't like the tortilla. They're too greasy. And I was like, okay, so next time let's focus on getting you, maybe we can get you a burrito and you can split it with your brother and we'll just open it up. And that can be yours. She's like, that's exactly what I want. I'm like, okay. And then afterwards, she's like, thank you so much for taking the time to figure out what was wrong.
She didn't know it was wrong.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the time you have to do that.
Absolutely.
What was the name of that book?
How to talk so kids will listen and how to listen so kids will talk. It might be reversed.
It's really good. I'll
Yeah.
find it on Amazon.
And that would be incredibly helpful, not just for communicating with your own children, but for talking with the students on the mat.
I
You
pull it on Caleb all the
Jake,
time.
there's a
Right?
chair back there.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
You've had the
Yeah.
really aggressive spar out there, right? The kid that you can tell is just having a terrible, terrible day, but you can't figure out why he's acting out, being naughty. You might need to dive into what's really going on with that kid, especially if it's out of the norm for their behavior. They're not just suddenly deciding to be super naughty on the mat. Something else probably is going on. And if you can have a conversation with them, y'all be much happier. So we're going to end with a reflective listening activity, and that's where we'll end this seminar and then move on into our next one, which I'm really excited for. So you get 3 minutes because we start the next one at 9:30. So I want you to pair up, take turns sharing thoughts or experiences that may come up at work. And after each person speaks, the listener is going to summarize back, reflecting back what it is that they heard, making sure they captured the main points accurately in that. So proceed.
So you get to invent a scenario, you tell your own tale. Response to